KSU's Franchise Management Speaker Series. Management 4124 guest speaker series includes CEOs, private equity firm leaders, bankers, entrepreneurs, and advisors. We are in a classroom on the KSU campus where the cameras will only be facing front and in the top of the ceiling due to student privacy requirements. So it may seem like I'm looking down and all by myself, but that is not the case. My name is Jordan Krolick. I'm the professor of franchise management, creator of the program here. My non-professor life is as an independent equity sponsor acquiring companies, as well as a senior leader with companies. Some of my past companies include McDonald's, Arby's, Home Depot, Chocolate Smoothie, and more. Today, we are extremely excited to have Scott Hoots, who is the CEO of QC Kinetix, a leader in the regenerative medicine industry, specializes in improving overall function and quality of life by harnessing the body's inherent healing properties through state-of-the-art natural biologic treatment. QC Kinetix has been named to the Entrepreneur's Annual Franchise 500, a top 15 franchise in Entrepreneur's top 150 new and emerging franchise brands, and the Franchise Times 400. Scott is a 40-year veteran of the franchising industry. I think I read that, folks. You do not look that. He served as the regional vice president of Domino, overseeing 1,500 franchise stores, VP of franchising for American Family Care, and president of Pet Wants, a boutique pet food franchise system, before coming to QC Kinetix as chief operating officer, and then becoming chief executive officer. He has overseen rapid growth at QC Kinetix and was recently named CEO of the Year by Business North Carolina magazine. Wow. Thank you for joining us, Scott. I can't thank you enough for taking a few minutes. That is beyond impressive.
That's a nice introduction. You're welcome, and thanks for having me. Kind of makes me feel like I've accomplished something in 40 years or so. So thanks for the tour.
Well, it's great, and you know what? And I just absolutely love your hairline. It shows that we are the future.
Exactly. Yeah, love your hairstyle too, dude.
Okay, well, let me, I'm gonna have one of my students, Alicia, I'm gonna have her start. And she'll introduce herself and ask you a question. It'll kind of kick us off.
Right.
Hey, my name is Alicia. My question to you was,
A little louder.
what inspired you to start the company?
So what inspired you to get started with QC Kinetix and join them?
Yeah, great question, Alicia. So just so you know, I'm not one of the founders. I was hired by the founders as employee number one when we were launching the franchise system. The company had been in existence for 4 years prior to me coming on board, operating only corporate-owned locations in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Texas. So I came on board in October of 2020 as we were launching the franchise brand. But the question is really about what inspired me to join QC Kinetix, and that is such a simple answer for me. And that is that QC Kinetix gave me the opportunity to continue the pursuit of my professional goal or my professional mission, and that is to be involved in what I call a mission-based franchise system. So what that means to me is it's a business that combines franchising, the business model that I love and I've been a part of for 40 years, but with a business that truly has a positive impact on people's lives. And what I mean by that is that the customers, if you want to call them that, they're patients in a healthcare environment, right? When they're done with us, or when we're done with them, however you want to look at it, they have achieved something that truly improves their lives. They're able to play golf again. They're able to run again. In my case, I'm a runner. I underwent our treatment protocols myself, and I'm able to get back and do half marathons again. So they're able to do something that they weren't able to do before. So it truly improves people's lives. And you know, franchising is a great model, but not all businesses can say that they have that type of an impact on people's lives. So that was what really inspired me about QC Kinetix. And the last 3 stops that I've been at, AFC, Pet Wants, and QC Kinetix have helped me pursue that.
Well, if you're running half marathons and marathons, I can tell you, I get tired driving 26 miles.
I've given up the marathons. It's halves that is my preferred
Still
distance.
pretty darn impressive. With that, I'm gonna have Light to dive a little bit deeper into what QC Kinetix is through Emilis. Emilis, why don't you share the question that you have for Scott?
Hi, my name is Emilis. I'm a senior majoring in entrepreneurship, and my question is: healthcare industry is massive and filled with big companies that try to maintain their market share. And how difficult is to penetrate this industry for an innovative company like QC Kinetix? And the second part of the question is: how difficult is to sell your value proposition?
So share a little bit about your value proposition and then future, and then how you deal with some of these competitors.
Yeah, great question. So our value proposition is we help people alleviate pain without the needs of drugs or surgery. So the traditional pathway for care in the United States for knee pain, let's just call it arthritis, has been orthopedic treatment protocols such as steroid injections, physical therapy, which is great, by the way, or drugs such as pain management drugs, opioids, which mask the pain or help you deal with the pain, or surgery, which can be debilitating, costly. It involves a lot of time off of work and is costly to both the patient and the company that the patient works for as well. So our value proposition is that we can treat that pain without them having to undergo costly surgery or potentially addictive drugs. So when somebody comes in and does a treatment with us, there's 5 treatments in a standard treatment protocol. When somebody comes in and does a treatment with us, they're able to just go right back to work right afterward. There's no downtime. There's nothing like that. So it's a very strong value proposition. Now, we're not the only ones that do this type of treatment. It's continuing to grow in popularity across the United States. That's been caused in the past by well-known athletes that have undergone regenerative medicine, like Kobe Bryant, Jack Nicklaus, among others. But what we do to break through is we take a page out of retail's playbook, and that is we advertise. If any of y'all are involved in healthcare classes or healthcare education, people in healthcare operations don't typically advertise. They rely on word of mouth and physician referrals. We advertise just like Domino's and hair cuttery and all these other big national brands do. We advertise on the radio. We advertise digitally. We advertise heavily on the radio and television, and that allows us to break through and attract more interest in our brand than, say, the chiropractor down the street who's offering regenerative medicine treatments in addition to their adjustment treatments.
And I'm going to let Riley dig a little bit deeper with a little bit of a challenging question, I would say. And again, for the people who are listening or for you, Scott, the students turn in questions over the last 24 to 48 hours. They give them to me and I just work them in. So that's kind of what you're saying.
Hey, my name's Riley. I was wondering, could you share any notable successes you've achieved through franchising or regenerative medicine?
So basically any successes, especially through the regenerative medicine, but then I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your franchise efforts.
Yeah, so successes, I'll kind of put that in the franchising bucket first. So long-term successes. I've been able to personally see individuals achieve their lifelong desires and dreams and goals and hopes of owning a business, but didn't have the wherewithal to create some kind of wheel themselves. And that's the power of franchising right there. And when you're on the franchisor side, like I am, you really dig on those successes. I remember when back in my Domino's pizza days, so this is way back when. I was coaching I was in this in this role called a franchise business coach, and my job was to help store managers and franchisees be successful. And this brand new manager came in to a location in Gainesville, Florida, and he was willing to help and work and take advice and take coaching. And together, we carved out an action plan for him to increase his sales by 3 times over the next year, and give him credit for putting in all of the work and doing all of that. And he achieved that goal. And a couple of years later, he was recognized as the Domino's Pizza Global Manager of the Year. And that's the type of success that is really, really cool about being on the franchisor side, as you see people like that be able to achieve their hopes and dreams. For sure. Success regenerative medicine, just, from a patient standpoint, I just look in the mirror when I came on board at QC Kinetix in October of 2020. I'd been running for 20 years or so, since I was 40 years old. I got to a point where I was doing maybe 3 or 4 half marathons, maybe a marathon or 2 a year when I was in my late 40s and 50s. But by the time I got down here, I'd been diagnosed with arthritis and my knees, and I literally could barely run a mile without excruciating pain in my knees. And I underwent our standard treatment protocols. And then later that year, I was able to get back and run my first half marathon of the year. Last year, I ran 5 half marathons. Done one this year, doing one in 2 weeks, and doing another one in a couple of months. So I'm a walking, talking success story when it comes to our regenerative medicine treatment plans, for sure.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm incredibly impressed by that, because again, we get to be our very young ages. Just getting out of bed and walking down the stairs and not hearing the creaks and the cracks and the everything, moving in ways that you don't expect it to. So it's like when I'm gonna go sit down, the few times I go sit down on the floor, I'm like my dog. I walk around it a couple of times. I kind of judge the distance now and figure it out. So let's go into a little bit more about the company, maybe a little bit more specific on how the company has grown. I'm going to turn this over to Taylor, who's got a couple of questions in one about just how you've grown this company and been basically one of the fastest growing concepts in the market today.
Hi, my name's Taylor. I'm a senior majoring in international business. My first question is, throughout opening 112 clinics within 15 months and signing on 500 additional development agreements, did you run into any challenges after the first 20 locations that you might not have run into without rapidly expanding?
Let's start with that.
Yeah, thanks for taking them one at a time, because my old brain sometimes has trouble remembering what the first question there is. But yeah, there were some challenges. A lot of them we expected, Taylor, but part of the biggest challenge was how we hired and got support people in place, and when the right timing to do that was. So in franchising, you have to have support. One of the keys to being successful is having support people for your franchise owners, right? They can't do it by themselves. They need support people on the franchisor side to train them and to onboard them and train them and to lead them and guide them, coach them and share best practices, give them a pat on the back when they need to, give them a kick in the ass when they need to. One of the key things when you're just starting out is when you start bringing those people in. And I went a little bit on the conservative side and didn't bring in enough franchise support people as quickly as was needed to be able to support those 59 that we opened in the first year. The first calendar year and the 100 some odd in the next year. We didn't quite stay ahead of the curve as well. And because of that, some franchisees lacked the support and the guidance, and they didn't perform quite as well as we would have all liked for them to. So that was probably the biggest challenge that we faced with the rapid growth. And once you get behind, then you're kind of like, okay, well, how do you keep up? You know, it's like that old donut video, time to make the donuts, and you're making all these donuts, and all of a sudden you get overwhelmed by all the donuts coming crashing out of the icing machine because you can't keep up with it. Once you've established that velocity of growth and you don't have the support people, you just get more behind and behind. But fortunately, we hired some great people who hired some other great people, and we were able to catch up pretty quickly.
Diving into that just a little bit more, Israel, why don't you ask what you proposed?
So in the article, I mentioned how you had built a capable team of 10 or more people, which was very unusual for a newer franchise brand. What did you look for when you're looking for an ideal candidate that could join your team?
Jordan, would you mind repeating that question for me, please?
It's basically, you mentioned in some articles that I provided to the class beforehand that you built a team of 10 or more. When you look for that ideal candidate, what do you look for to join your team?
For the support side, right?
For the support side, not for the franchise side.
Yeah, great question. So first and foremost, somebody with a passion for helping other people. Franchising on the franchisor side is not a look at me kind of role. It's a look what I am doing, look at you once you have accomplished, once you have followed the business model and you've listened to my coaching and you've done what I've asked you to do. It's a look at you type of model. So for the first and foremost is somebody who has a passion for that kind of thing. Oftentimes people just want to chirp about their own accomplishments, and you know, on the franchisor side, it's really about what you're inspiring other people to do and how successful they are. And you know, the other, I guess, typical answer would be some business acumen, right? An understanding of all facets of the business, people management, the financial component side of it, how to properly hire and fire people, you know, all of those things, having somebody who's well-rounded and can help guide franchise owners, because, you know, they don't have a big team of departments around them. They're their own HR, CFO, COO, and CEO. So they all have to be very, very well-rounded. And then I guess the last thing I would say is somebody who's able to build rapport pretty quickly. And what I mean by that, you have to be able to get in and be able to work with a franchise owner and inspire them to like you, to know you, and to trust you. And that takes rapport building skills, and not everybody has that. So and then lastly, specifically for QC Kinetix, it's funny because I was just talking about this the other day. Everybody that I was personally involved in interviewing everybody for the first maybe 14, 16 months of our existence. And every single person, I also ask them, are you the type of person who can thrive in a fast-paced, ever-changing, the lines are blurred type of environment? Because we were growing so fast, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't bring somebody on who really could only thrive in a environment where they're between two lanes, and that's the way they like operating between guardrails. That would have been a disaster to bring that type of person on. So every single person always got that question, and they were not hired unless they were able to convince me that they would be able to thrive in a fast-paced and ever-changing environment.
And it's so critical. I mean, everything you said is dead on, and it's so critical for the people that are interviewing with you to perhaps understand themselves a little bit. I mean, if they don't
Yeah.
understand what they're good at and what their interests are, you know, whether they're an innovator, whether they're a scaler, what they're, can they deal with a company that's moving fast? Do they like more of a stated, this is, I know what I'm going to be doing today, and I can't deal with if a franchise calls me and says, hey, we have a problem with this. Well, then it's like yelling fire. It becomes your top priority to get out of the building or to help them.
Yeah,
Have you run into
that's
that a
the
lot?
thing I couldn't, that's the person I couldn't hire, is the person that just wanted to have a standard answer every single day and have a standard list of things to do every single day. That person would flame out pretty quickly in our organization.
And so when you're sitting here and you said QC Kinetix, why franchise? Why not just build them yourself?
Yeah, so we went through that iteration, and the answer is the same answer that I think entrepreneurs, when they first ask themselves about franchising, they have to answer this question, and that is, and the answer to it is, franchising allows you to build a brand through owners and people with skin in the game, and people at a higher level of performance and commitment to the brand than I would be able to hire managers. So take my 180 locations across the United States. If I had to hire managers to run them, we could probably do great. There's a lot of brands that build organically through wholly owned locations, but the benefit of having owners who have invested money, blood, sweat, tears, emotions into that business is so impactful. The ability to run multi-site across the country is much better when you're dealing with owners, excuse me, as opposed to dealing with managers, in my opinion. And that's why we went with franchises. And an offshoot of that, Jordan, is that we could scale quicker than having to do it ourselves. It would have taken us a while to build 180 locations and staff them, and all of those. It would take tremendous resources. This way, we're offloading all of that onto the franchisee and allowing them to be successful along with us.
And for some of your previous brands like AFC and Domino's, it's pretty easy to know what type of franchisee in many ways has to be the best at running a store, managing people inside the four walls, because the sales component is not as necessary because you've got a name on the outside. You have a Domino's that has a phone number and a name, and they come in. For growing in, especially in your younger stages of your growth, you need to be both this external where you can get out in the market, explain what the concept is, teach people if you're a franchisee, plus run a good store. So when you're looking for a franchisee, what are you looking for? Who is a successful franchisee in your brand?
Great question. So the successful franchise, and I talk about this a lot on our discovery day. So first and foremost, somebody who's passionate about our mission statement. We're a very mission-oriented organization. Everything revolves around our mission statement of improving the lives of as many people as possible, utilizing regenerative medicine to avoid the need for drugs or surgery. So I want franchisees to be passionate around that mission. If they are just looking for an investment opportunity and it doesn't really matter whether it's regenerative medicine or donut shop or a teepee building company. I want them focused on and passionate about our mission. Second, and this is probably tied for most important, is a commitment to following the model the way the model is laid out. That means they need to come in. Excuse me, sorry about that. They need to come in and they need to be prepared to follow our formula from A to Z and not try to reinvent the wheel. Because when they come in and they try to reinvent the wheel, that's when the wheel starts to get wobbly and then falls off. You don't have to listen to me on this. There are franchise experts across the United States that all echo the same thing. Sorry, when I get rolling on this, I get a little choked up. I'm probably going to need to grab a little bit of water here in a second. But
why don't you go do that, and we can continue.
Okay, that would be great if you'll allow me just a second to refill my water cup. I'll be right back.
Perfect. Let me hand this over to Simeon.
Hey, my name is Simeon. So when I was reading the article, it was stated like in the first portion of it, it said you like to have fun and you be serious when you guys have to be, but not really serious. And that's something that was intriguing to me because I like to have fun, and even at my work, I always try to keep a fun atmosphere or mood, and I guess what I can control. So I was curious as to what inspires you and what goes through your mind to make sure that you're having fun.
So what inspires you to keep work fun, and where does that come from?
Yeah, it's funny, Simeon, because I actually have to work to keep myself serious. Believe that or not, you hear a CEO say that. We were in a training meeting last week. And our training director was in the middle of some kind of really serious thing, and this kind of funny joke offshoot of what she was saying popped into my mind, and I was getting ready to say it, and I had to actually hold myself back because I wanted to make sure that we kept on a serious. The time was right to keep being serious there, but I think that. As human beings, we all want to work in an environment, be around an environment where that we enjoy. And most people enjoy hard work and accomplishing things, but they also enjoy being around other people who are like-minded, and they enjoy being around people who are fun. They like having fun. And so we try to work into our operating system opportunities for us to work as a team, not on work. For example, last week, all of the support people from the entire United States came in for this training session that I was just talking about. We stopped at 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, and we all went on a scavenger hunt through the city of Charlotte. And everybody had a great time, but they were in teams, and it fostered a work environment that people were having fun while they were doing the scavenger hunt. It was really competitive. My team won, by the way, just so yay me. But
not that we're competitive.
I did not cheat. I was accused of it, but did not. But I do think it's important for a leader to be able to provide a challenging but also fun environment for your team to work through. So we try to do something every quarter. as a team, something that's fun, whether it's a scavenger hunt or going to a baseball game or doing whatever. I think it's really important for people to keep good people around. I think it's really important.
And the other thing that I can see just from this conversation is you're also creating a winning culture. We talk a lot about the way that if people are going to spend more time with a business than they are with their own family, they want to win. And it sounds like you've created a winning culture versus, hey, we're never going to be able to do this, or we're, and maybe some of the old concepts that you may have been with, you can know that there's a concept of, we're not the best. We'll never be the best. That's a tough thing to get excited and wake up for, where you can't win.
Yeah, and that goes back for me personally, that goes back to the my very first job at Domino's Pizza was a delivery driver. So I saw one of the prep questions in here was, how did you get your start? Well, I was actually a delivery driver for Domino's when Domino's first opened in Greensboro, North Carolina, January the 10th, 1981. I was a freshman in college, wanted a job, had a car, sounded like a great job. But that back then, we would have maybe 20 delivery drivers on a Friday night. Friday night was our busiest night in sales. And we'd have maybe 20 delivery drivers that were working from 4 to close. Close would have been 2 o'clock in the morning. And we were all competitive to get the most number of pizza deliveries for the night and the highest delivered sales of the night. The delivered sales was important because we got a commission on our delivered sales. So the more higher dollar amount of pizza you delivered, the more commission you got paid in cash that night. But as you delivered more pizza orders, you got little bonuses as well. So we were really competitive. And that's really kind of what started my whole competitive nature in work. You just assign it to something as innocuous as the competitiveness of delivering pizzas for Domino's back in the day.
Well, I want to get to that because I think your personal story and leading off with that is outstanding. I mean, you go from delivery driver to CEO. It's something, again, I have a lot of students who are trying to figure out, hey, everybody in my class are seniors. What is my first step that starts me down the road? And that's a pretty amazing story. So I'm going to first start with Bryce and Di. Let me start with you and share some, we can build up and talk a little bit more just about Scott himself.
Hey, I'm Bryson. I'm also a senior here. So I wondered, how did some of your previous roles in franchising set you up to where you are now? And maybe specifically, you mentioned the franchise business coach or some of those support roles.
Yeah. So Bryson, I was really fortunate. And I was fortunate that I have always had managers who cared about me as a person, cared about my development, and cared about what I wanted to do with my life and my professional career. And they cared enough to help me be successful. That very first Domino's pizza store that I was just talking about, the franchise owner's name was Brad Walker, and Brad wasn't that much older. He was only 3 or 4 years older than I was. But he cared about me, and he cared about everybody that worked for him. Taking that a step further, when I got into managing stores later on, that was a different franchise owner. Same thing. Scott and Sarah Cox wanted to give me all the opportunity that I had to be successful as a manager, because it made them more successful as owners. But it also gave me a platform for advancing in my career if I wanted to do that. And then later on, when I started working for the franchisor as this franchise coach, I had a regional vice president and a regional director, both of who invested time into me personally to help me in my development, helped me capitalize on my strengths, coached me through my weaknesses, and helped me be a much better person. So probably the most influential thing in my career, besides the fact that I've always been driven to achieve more and to get to that next step, has been I've been fortunate that I've always had somebody there to lift me up and help me get to that next step.
It's so important, and you've been very fortunate, but also it sounds like you've also made you've made things happen for both you and your team. Julia, why don't you ask that second question that you had?
What is the most, oh, hi, sorry. Hi, I'm Julia. I'm a senior here and I'm on
Hey, Julia.
my question was, what is the most valuable lesson franchising has taught you?
Wow, the most now you're getting close to stumping me now here. Maybe I'd say that anybody can be successful. When I look at business, and y'all probably do the same thing too. You think of businesses and you think of big businesses, and the CEO of General Electric, old CEO of General Electric, Jack Welch, CEO of McDonald's. You think of these guys or gals. Sorry, there's plenty of women who lead companies and lead them just as well as men. So you think of these men and women who you admire as being the stalwarts of business, and you go, man, I just don't feel as smart as them, or I don't feel as intelligent as them, or I don't feel as driven as them. And then, all of a sudden, 30, 40 years, 30 years later, in my career, I'm in a role where I get to talk to y'all because you think there's something in my story that's important. So maybe that's the biggest thing that I've learned is that anybody can do it. Anybody can be successful if you want to invest in yourself and you have others that will invest in you. Anybody can get to this level.
Well, that makes sense, but I'll let Amir dive into it maybe to level 2 here.
Hey, so my name is Amir. I'm a business management major at Kennesaw State, and my question was, you spoke on the importance of creating a fun and winning environment as a leader, and given your extensive past in leadership roles and having risen through the ranks from delivery driver to CEO, what would you say is one quality that separates you from other leaders and has allowed you to achieve remarkable success?
Caring about people and in their success. And not every leader does that. A lot of leaders just care about delivering performance, delivering on financial KPIs, right? And that's the only thing. And by the way, they're really good at it. But they run over people, and they create vacuums behind them sometimes. I think one of the things that kind of separates me from a lot of folks is just my commitment has always been to developing people, and helping. And you've heard me talk about it a lot already, because that's where I got some of that. That support for me was important as well.
Well, Scott, I can't thank you enough for your time. You don't realize it may be just a short amount of time for you, but for the students in my class as well as myself, it's incredibly meaningful that you be generous enough to spend a little bit of this time and share some of the thoughts, because this is where they learn from. But I'd like to end with my question, which is, you got this whole group of students here. As I said, they're all seniors. What's kind of the one piece of advice that you would want to leave them with that's critical as they figure out and kind of plan out their next steps of their career?
One, or maybe a couple. You can pretty much do whatever you want to accomplish if you have the right mindset. If you want to think of yourself as a victim, or your circumstances aren't as good as somebody else's circumstances, then you're not going to be able to achieve everything that you want to achieve. You have control over your life and the things that you do, and you can accomplish what you want to accomplish if you have a clear vision and can set a path for yourself to accomplish those things. I'd close kind of similar on that, Jordan. Just don't let anybody tell you that you can't, because you can. There's always a way. Our co-founder, Justin Kroll, who's a lot younger than me, by the way, 37 years old, he's always saying there's always a solution, and he's right. There's a solution to any problem in life. So don't let anybody say that you can't, because you can.
Well, it truly sounds to me like Justin and their team and founders are incredibly fortunate to have you, and to help guide their mission of growing QC. And it sounds like you're doing it just seems like we're going to hear a lot more of QC, and I can't thank you enough for your time, just the few minutes that you've spent with us.
Well, you're welcome. It was a pleasure. It was a great pleasure doing it. I wish you all the best of success, and one day a few folks in your class will be doing this exact same very thing for somebody else.
That would be a dream of mine. Hopefully, as I said, hopefully I don't screw them up too much. But in the meantime, thank you again, and you and I will talk soon. I really appreciate you.
Sounds good. Good deal, Jordan. Thanks, everybody. Y'all have a great evening, okay?
Thank you.